Okay, let's try again. Good morning. So happy to see you all. Had it on mute there for a second, not quite with the program yet. So let's start with meditation and bring us all into the same place. So take a deep breath and take your attention inside. Visualize that you're surrounded by pranic plasma. This beautiful, beautiful, loving energy that as you inhale comes into your body and you become a sponge. You just take in the love. And when you exhale, exhale anything that is not that love, anything that keeps you from experiencing pure, raw love, which is our birthright. So as you breathe, just imagine this pure, raw love filling every cell of your body. You become completely permeable to this love. And all blocks begin to disintegrate. Because who in this world, given the opportunity, would not choose to be pure, raw love? And now take your attention into your heart center and visualize there a tiny being the size of your thumb sitting on a lotus flower. And it's you completely realized. And as you breathe into this being, you allow it to expand, to become you. And you just breathe into this and allow it to happen. You feel it first filling your chest and your entire torso, waking up all the energy, meridians, and centers. As you embody your completely realized form. And anything that comes up that tries to distract you from that, just let it go. It'll be there later if you want to pick it up. So feel into this beautiful energy that's going all the way out to your fingertips, all the way down to your toes. As you become your completely realized self. And now allow yourself to expand, to completely encompass the room that you're sitting in, so that your beingness just expands and the room and you are one inside you. And they still have all their separateness, but they're inside you. you have expanded to encompass it. Then you allow yourself to expand to encompass your entire city. Everybody and everything in that city is inside of you. You might even have visions of people going out around in their daily business inside you. And when you're ready, expand even more to encompass the entire earth. Everything is inside of you. And now you expand to include the solar system inside you. And now the universe. The entire universe is within you. And now the multiverse. In the vastness of space, it's all contained within you. Now gently allow yourself to come back to the universe. Back to the solar system. Back to the earth. Until you again come into the room, and stop when you get to the room. Look down at the being who's sitting in meditation. And gently extend your hand to the top of the head from your beingness that's expanded into the room. And you pour love into that being. love into love. And then you gently come into your body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and we'll start the program. So how may we serve this morning? We're so happy to see you all. We did get a question last week. Let's see if we can pull it in. So last week we talked about a little bit about how, you know, our idea of reincarnation being a linear experience where we go from one life to the next life to the next life, and there's this progression of lives that build on each other. Well, this is our linear idea because our minds are linear. But the truth of what's really happening is that all these lives are happening at the same time. But because we have linear minds, we can't really grasp that concept. It's much easier for us to have one after the other, after the other, after the other. And because it's beyond our imagination to be two places at the same time, right? It's just beyond our imagination because it's beyond our experience, which is part of the reason we like this bigger meditation that we've been doing, which came from Ram Dass, by the way. It's in his book called Polishing the Mirror. And it's only about 4 pages in. It's really easy to find in that book. But anyway, that's why we like this meditation, because it expands us beyond our perception of our reality. And to understand that all of our lives are happening at the same time, they're just different timelines on top of each other that actually have some bleed through at various moments in our lives. And it's even possible, although happens, well, it's even possible to jump from one timeline to another, but not really our purpose exactly. Our true purpose is to pay attention to our own evolution and become love. That's really what our purpose in being here, which is the same as saying we're preparing ourselves for fifth dimensional living, which is living from love, where every life is important and harmony is the goal. And there is an understanding of the logic of love itself. That love has an innate logic. It's almost like gravity when it's understood. And so the beginning to understand that life in capital letters is nonlinear. Vitality is nonlinear. It just is. And that's what source energy is. It doesn't fall into the categories that we would like to put it in with our minds. And what we do as human beings is, when something gets bigger than our perceptual reality, we break it down into smaller parts and then describe each of those parts. And every word that we use to describe our experience or what we see, feel, or experience, every word that we use creates a limitation. It narrows down what that thing actually is. And so our language over time, creates all these little boxes for our experience. When in reality, that's just us trying to make ourselves comfortable by making everything around us linear. Because our minds are linear. But our beingness, our ability to merge into source energy is completely nonlinear. And so all these categories kind of break apart, and language itself no longer serves to describe the experience because any word that we use creates a limitation. So this is why we talk about love, peace, joy, gratitude, and that which is beyond. That which is beyond is the embodiment of love itself, and it contains everything. There is nothing outside of it. Now, these different lives that we lead, each one has a blueprint to take us through whatever it is we've agreed to in a particular life. And the way it works is this: when we die, we go through a review process of what our life was. And we, in harmony with Source itself, plan the next life. Again, non-linear. They're all like, spaghetti on a plate. But this is happening. And that's about as much as we can reduce it for you to a language you can understand. If you can take these images and sort of allow your imagination to just expand around the image of multiple lives at the same time, sort of really like spaghetti on a plate. They're ribbons of timelines. But it's not that they're without it's like describing the force of gravity, but it's different. It's living. And it's mutable. It responds to our blueprint responds to our inner work. We've given you the example before, and we'll give it to you once again. A number of years ago, Rebecca was in a car accident. And the way it happened was this: she pulled up into the right-hand lane. And there was a truck to her left. and she was wanting to make a right-hand turn. And as she pulled up, it was just the end of a yellow light. The light, as she stopped, turned red. And she immediately noticed that on the red light, the truck started, it was a big semi, started pulling out into the intersection. And she was like, I don't know what this is. Why is he pulling out into the intersection? And then she saw his wheels start to turn right. And, you know, this was a big semi, and she was in a 2010 Honda Civic right next to the ground, practically, small car. He couldn't see her. She immediately hit the horn. Nothing happened. He kept going. She thought, oh, my car's going to be crushed. I have to get out of the car. So she reached with one hand to the seatbelt and the other hand to grab the door on the passenger side to get out of the car. The next thing she knew, she was standing on the curb watching her car being crushed by a semi. The front windshield came in on top of the driver's seat. And then the side window on the driver's seat came in on top of the driver's seat as she was watching. Now, that car accident was in the blueprint. Getting out of the car was always an option, but the amount of awareness in that moment to get out of the car was required for that to be an option. So, you know, she was seeing all this happen as it was happening and clearly had help getting out of that car. No question about it. You don't end up anywhere but on your nose if you dive from the driver's seat out the passenger side of a car. She ended up on her feet looking at the car. So there was a lot of angelic help. So this is available to us as we cultivate ourselves. The reason for this story is to show you that, you know, that car accident was part of the blueprint. It was going to happen no matter what. But the stage of evolution that one meets a karmic event like that, the stage of evolution has impact in terms of how the event comes out. So it's worthwhile to cultivate one's awareness and love and capacity to participate in each moment in our lives in real time, in the now moment, not thinking about what happened yesterday or what might happen tomorrow, but to be present now with what is happening. Because how much of our lives do you think we miss because we're paying attention to past or future? Like 95%, maybe? Most of us? A lot. And there is a time for that. Contemplation, meditation always contains some of that. And it is in clearing that, which is a lot of what inner work is, that gives us the possibility of living from a deeper place that's more in contact with the source of our vitality and living from that source, which is love, instead of living in reaction to everything that's been done to us or that we fear might be done to us in the future. We hope this makes sense. We welcome your questions. Yes, Suzanne, so happy to see you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good. Well, already I've appreciated just the minutes we've been on here. But I'd like a little expansion on the comment, love has an innate logic. Could that be expanded?
Well, we could say that everything that happens through love. Everything that we experience is actually love. But because it's filtering through what we call matrix of belief, we don't experience it as love. We experience it as however we experience it, which has everything to do with our belief system in the moment about the meaning of things, of experience. And so our matrix of belief is quite linear because our minds are linear. And the people who gave us our matrix of belief when we were children, very young children, had their own perceptions about what matrix of belief would enable our survival.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they taught us. That doesn't mean that what they taught us had anything to do with truth. But it was the truth from their perspective,
right,
in our childhood. So it's up to us to examine our matrix of belief. And this happens as we have life experience. And when we get to the point where we can't really make any sense out of it, that's where spiritual practice begins. When we suddenly realize that we don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, and it doesn't work the way we expect it to. And so we have experiences that, we sort of did everything right, but it doesn't work out. And so we start to go, well, what is happening here for real? And that's when we start to have a spiritual life, because we understand that what we've been taught isn't true. It doesn't work. It just doesn't get us anywhere we want to go. We're not really, really happy. We're getting by, but we're not fully embodying what's possible. And we have some sense of that in ourselves, that we're not completely fulfilled.
right.
And so then we start to look at our matrix of belief. And as we you understand the problem in bringing the nonlinear to the linear is that it doesn't exactly work, because the nonlinear is nonlinear. And as soon as it comes into the linear, it's reduced to something it's not. And since all of our language is linear, it's very difficult to describe the logic of love, which in itself is a linear idea. Because logic is linear.
Right.
Although I have to say, the only course that I ever almost failed in my life was, I signed up for logic when I was an undergraduate, and I could not make heads or tails out of logic in college. It was like completely beyond me. How I got a C, I will never know. It's the only C I ever got in my life. And it was like, I could not understand logic. So I guess I've always been kind of nonlinear in a way. But, you know, and that's what art is. This is why people go to art.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you understand it. You're an artist. What is it that you can express through your work that you cannot express in words? A lot, right?
Yes.
That is the logic of love.
Okay.
That's what pushed you to go to art, because you can't in a linear language express what you're experiencing.
Right.
So you know inside yourself the limitations of linear. And even though your art is a medium that you in some ways retains, you know, lip service to the linear, but you go nonlinear pretty quickly.
I know.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So you understand what we're saying.
I do. I do. I was just letting myself get stuck on that word logic.
Yes.
But frankly, I still sort of like logic. So
Well, you know, logic has its place. We're not saying that logic should be dispensed with.
no, I
You
didn't.
know, I mean, we still have to live in this world. So, you know.
Yeah. Thank you. That makes me look at it in an additional way. Thank you.
Good. You're so welcome. Oh, it's such a pleasure to see you. How may we serve further? Hmm. Hmm. So the logic of love is like this. The more we love, the more we attract love. The less we love, the less we attract love. It's kind of simple in that way. The more we become love, but it's not linear. So it's not this cause and effect thing exactly. But in the overall, that's what happens. The more we become love, the more we attract different things from what we attracted when we were less love. In that way, it's kind of linear. Because as the field of our awareness as love expands, we don't exactly perceive in the same way. And so, we see the world the way we are. So if our attention is on love, we will see love. If our attention is on unfairness, we will see unfairness. If our attention is on money, we will see money. If our attention is on beauty, we will see beauty. For the most part, this is true, but everything has within it an axis. So if we're looking at beauty, we might be looking at the whole scale of beautiful to ugly. So what are we going to see? We're going to see that whole scale. And so, and that's true of many things. You know, if we're concentrating on a particular subject, we might see the whole of it. And that's not a bad thing. It's just this is kind of how it works. How may we serve you?
Hi, it's Kath.
Hi, Kath. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's so good
So
to
happy to see you.
so happy to see you too. I just finished managing an 80-person conference in Florida, and it was such an interesting experience. We had, because of COVID, we had both remote attendees and people on site for attendees, and then remote presenters and on-site presenters. Fortunately, I didn't have to do any of that tech, which was a great blessing. But my question is, I had, because it was Florida and we had people all over the map, we didn't have COVID, we didn't know who'd been vaccinated or not. And Florida is very different from here. I had a lot of protocols that I was able to get in place. And I guess what was interesting was the first night at dinner, nobody wore masks. I had asked people when they were approaching food or beverages that other people would be consuming to please wear their masks. So like going through buffet lines and all that. And they were so paying attention to what their buddies were doing that they didn't. But then by the next day, they were pretty much all doing it, to the extent that they'd say, "Hey, Kath, where are those masks?" Because I brought masks. So I was curious about how that shift happens, because it was a pretty big shift. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, have you ever heard about the 100th monkey?
No.
Well, let's see if I can remember. There was a monkey who one day realized that if he washed the coconut before he ate it, coconut's not very good. Let's use an apple. If he washed the apple before he ate it, he didn't ever get sick. So he started washing the apple. And then he had a family, and his children started washing the apples. And then they taught their children, and monkeys happen in groups. And so this started to go throughout the group. And when the 100th monkey started to wash its food, all the monkeys on the earth started to wash their food.
Wow. I think part of what was so amazing was how quickly the shift happened, which was so heartwarming and positive and great.
Well, we would say that a lot of why that happened is because there was no reaction on the first night to not wearing masks. There was just, a calm acceptance that this is the way it is here. And when in Rome, there's nothing you can do but behave like a Roman. And so that allowing, there was some surrender in that moment that happened. And so the point of freedom and allowing was there. But then the logic behind the personal safety, and everybody wanted personal safety. Nobody wants to get COVID. Nobody wants to give it to anyone else. I mean, really, as human beings, this is how we feel about it. Everybody feels that. They may feel differently about the path to avoidance, or even whether it's a real thing. But somehow it was okay. It was okay to behave that way in that circumstance because it was required and requested. And so, and there was no force involved. Had there been force, there would have been equal repellent force. Yes. Yeah. But freedom of choice allowed people to, behave well.
And I think also we framed it up as, is in a consideration of your other colleagues, because like one guy was there who had a transplant a couple of years ago. And I said, we have the gamut of people here. So
Compromised, yeah.
yeah, and it was interesting because even he, the guy who had the transplant, the first night kind of was going with the group, which blew my mind because of not kind of doing risk management. But then, and that just, it brought to the fore how much people are so concerned about what other people think and what their peers think and all of that. So that's what was just so interesting, was that like the 100th monkey, there was some point of shift where it became okay for them to do it. And it was just fascinating seeing that. But I will say, after getting back, it's taken me longer than usual to kind of get my energy back, because I'm working a lot of hours and all that, but I think also I had not been around that many people for, quite a while. And I was doing masks, like, unless I was eating or whatever. And I think there was a lot of extra energy that was expended by that added level of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll also say that when the matrix of belief is challenged by a temporary group setting, people can behave differently. And sometimes that's to everybody's benefit, and sometimes it's the opposite. Like riots are nothing but energy out of control. And, people just being swept up in a current. So, the setting can influence a lot about people's behaviors. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. It was hard to frame it up into a question, so.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. How may we serve further? Yes.
Talk a bit about my experience with connecting with Annassa. As usually as possible when I'm in an open place, and then I can feel you. But my question is how to invoke Annassa during periods of confusion and contraction, or where that it's hard to get to that open space.
Well, what we recommend, first of all, oh yes. So the question is how to invoke Annassa when we're in not such a great space. It's easy to feel Annassa when we're open and flowing and, part of everything. Then it's just there. But what do we do when we're contracted? And the thing about Annassa is that their energy is only perceptible down to a certain frequency. And if you can't make it to that frequency, then their energy is not perceptible. and less. And this is the Annassa temple. And one of the purposes of the Annassa temple is to reclaim our birthright of love. And so we can go to the Annassa temple anytime. And there is always a treatment table in the Annassa temple if we want to go there and just lay on the treatment table and say, help, I'm kind of screwed up. We can always just do that. And the love will come. And if we're in a little better shape, we can go and actually ask about what it is that has derailed us and how to be with it. And we may not get the answer in the moment, or we may hang out long enough for the answer to come through. But when our mind is disengaged, when we're doing something mindless and Annassa can come through, we'll get an answer. But to reestablish yourself when your halo has slipped, go to the Annassa temple and get on the treatment table and get your halo right. We are here to help, no matter what. In those settings, we do not judge, because each of us has our own path, and all parts are welcome. All parts are welcome. It is our self-judgment that often derails us the most and the quickest, because something happens and then we suddenly feel like we failed. We accuse ourselves. We are judge and jury in the same moment. And in that failure, we derail all of our self-love that we have accumulated to that point. And we collapse in a heap of self-destruction. We all do it. And we do it until we actually understand that no success happens without failure. Hundreds and hundreds of failures. Nobody ever learns anything without failing. That's how we learn. It's because we do it wrong. And then sooner or later, we suddenly, oh, if we do it this way, nobody gets hurt, including us. And so it's learning that judgment is not best applied to our own efforts, except in the arena of, oh, I could do this better next time. But we don't have to hurt ourselves to get that message. One of the things that we are taught in our matrix of belief is that the only way we can learn is through pain. This is not true. It's just not true. Pain, actually, drama and trauma requires healing before we can get to love. So we've actually made the love further away by creating a drama and traumatizing ourselves with the idea of failure. We've made two steps that didn't have to happen in our learning process, in our growth process. So as we learn to kind of expand our matrix of belief to be more inclusive of diversity, within ourselves and everyone else we meet. As we learn that, then the dramas get less and the traumas get less, and we spend less time in recovery from what we've done to ourselves for our failures, and more of our time and energy is spent in the growth process itself rather than in the destruction and reorganization phases. We hope this makes sense. Please ask us questions so that we can explain further if this doesn't make sense. Did that answer your question?
Yes, just one corollary is that how about in situations where there's not really luxury of finding time to go to the Annassa temple, or there's so much agitation or depression that just even looking to ask, just trying to get myself together, fix myself.
Okay, this is good. So what do you do when you're too, we're going to paraphrase, when you're too distraught to actually take yourself to an Annassa temple, or you don't have the time and energy in the space you're in with the requirements you're facing in your daily life to actually go there? What do you do? Well, we're going to give you an answer that's specific to you, Andrew. And that is, you go to self-love. Whatever happens that distorts your reality in the present, you need to go to self-love, because you know what love feels like. You know what love is. And so it's important that you find it in yourself rather than seek it somewhere else, because you have so much experience with it. Your task at this stage of your evolution is to live from what you know, because you know it. And so to seek it somewhere else in any kind of ideal way is actually not helpful to you in this time. That part of your work is done. You already have access. So you expand into your own access. And this is really the stage where you are. And it's a stage of self-denial that you don't want to embody what you've learned, or you feel whatever it is you feel that limits you. We're not going to put words to it because that's not important. What's important is that you embody what you have discovered and not deny it. Any looking elsewhere is denial at this point and not acceptable anymore. So it's all one thing. It's all one thing. So there's no denying of Annassa by embodying the love you have accessed within yourself. Yes. See, it's all one thing. There's no separation. There is no separation. That's all matrix of belief. Yes, you've got it. See? Beautiful. So he's been working for a very long time, sharing lots of love with other people, really sharing himself. And it's his calling and his work to do that. And he's done it for years. And he's always thought of it as something that he's bringing down from somewhere else for somebody else. And there's a certain point where one has to understand that what is coming through is not other, but self with a capital S. And then going to the Annassa temple is in a way, another way of diminishing oneself by identifying the love as other and outside. So it's a subtle distinction, but one that happens for all of us at a certain point where we actually become the love itself. And then there's no separation between Annassa and Rebecca, Annassa, Andrew, Annassa, Brenda, Annassa, anyone on this call. It becomes who and what we are because we have embodied it ourselves. And that any calling it other becomes a denial of our own embodiment. So it's really about the union with the all of the all that is. And this is a very potent example of linear and nonlinear merging. Because linear would have Annassa outside ourselves or some other place, some other location. But as our opening meditation was attempting to demonstrate to us, everything that is within us. Everything. There is nothing outside. We see the world the way we are. So when we become love, to then say Annassa's love and I'm not, is a disempowering event. At the same time, from a linear perspective, for a long time, Annassa looks like the love and we look like something else. That's not love. And that's okay, because you have to start somewhere. And so wherever that experience can come from and resonate within you, that's where we start. And we build it and we build it and build it until you become that. And then you don't need Annassa anymore because you are that. But there's this funny phase change where we're both at the same time. And that again is nonlinear. And then there's a certain point where you just give it up and you're just love. And this can all happen in different parts of a day or in different parts of a lifetime, or, you know, it's not linear. And so we'll go in and out of it for a while. We hope this makes sense. We see a lot of confusion in the faces at the moment. So please ask us, what doesn't make sense? Because it's all about embodying the love, becoming the love itself. And we are that already. We just don't know it yet. Did that? And we all seek to diminish ourselves. Just about everybody on this call, that's a strategy of really not taking responsibility for the love we've already experienced. Because it's demanding to be love. It's not easy. How may we serve further? Brenda, anything? So it gets complicated. Yeah, go ahead. What is demanding about love? Well, keeping your heart open is no easy feat. What happens as you embody love is that your spiritual beingness comes alive. The meridians and the energetic chakra system becomes a part of reality. And as that happens, as those energy centers open up to be embodied, it requires a new level of work to maintain that awareness. And share it. Because all the love that comes in for us to be able to share with everyone we love. Especially the ones we say we love. And walking that talk is demanding. And sometimes it hurts because we have to reorganize our matrix of belief. because it doesn't encompass what is required of us in a given moment. And that breaks our brain and our heart and every other part of us as we re-equilibrate. But it helps if we don't reject ourselves. That's part of that process. You know, if we actually recognize that there is an expansion underway that feels like a downgrade, but it's actually an upgrade. Because we have to break apart before we can come back together. Anything else, Brenda? We would like it if love was just bliss. That would be fun. And it is some of the time, but that's not all it is. Love encompasses everything. Which is not to say that there isn't bliss. I mean, that happens. So embodying this love. For a certain period of time, it feels like the love is outside of us coming in. Then the love is inside of us coming out. And then there's just flow of love. And you're in the flow or you're out of the flow. And the flow itself is the love. And it's not like we own it or it owns us. It's a flow that we experience and participate in and with. So Andrew and I are part of a piano trio, a musical group with piano, violin, and cello. And we did a concert a week or so ago. And it went very well. It was a very open-hearted performance. We probably played better than we ever have. And so afterwards I said to Annassa, okay, who played that program? Was it me or you? And they said, yes. Because it was union. It wasn't me or you. It was the flow itself, just happening. And there was no identity. There was no room for any identity in that. It was just like, wow. And all three of us were just in that. So there was nobody there and everybody there at the same time. It's just, that's what flow feels like. It's just in it. And so, you know, we use the separation, I mean, it's channeling, yes. Embodying, Yes. Separation, not really. But it's a convenient way to get your attention. But it's possible for everybody here. Everybody on the planet can know this love and live from it. And you see, the nonlinear of it is that yes, Rebecca is Annassa. Annassa is coming through Rebecca. There is no separation. And that knowing is available to everyone. Being a channel is a convenient way to get your attention. This is inside you too. Rebecca is not the only chosen one to bring this to you. It's not like that at all. This is for everybody. Breathe, feel, open, expand, allow. These are the important words. And it's the doing of the being. It's so hard to say from linear language, but it is the doing of the being that allows us to expand, to become the love that we are, that already exists inside of us and outside of us. We just need to allow it to come into us. Allow it to become us, allow ourselves to become it. We become the sponge, it just comes in and permeates everything to the depth of our allowing. And don't make yourself feel less than if you don't feel completely like your love in this moment or the next moment. Understand that it is a process that sometimes takes time. And it has a lot to do with how tightly wound our matrix of belief is. And the more we can, kind of let go around the edges, the more it begins to permeate deeper and deeper into our essential awareness as we become that love itself. And meditation helps a lot. Sitting and being quiet and allowing that flow to permeate our being. The more we do it, the more we become it, and the more quickly we become it. And if we can't feel it, go to the Annassa temple. So on that note, unless somebody has another question, we'll move into meditation. And for this part, we want you to get to wherever you were at the height of the last meditation, or whatever takes you into meditation the quickest. And we are going to channel Annassa for everyone. We're going to channel pure, raw love. So we'll be quiet now. and begin transmission phase. So wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much for coming. It's pure joy for us. Till next time.